Tension today. Philippines protests Chinese jets firing of flares in the path of North Carolina 212 patrol plane. The Philippine government said Tuesday it has filed a diplomatic protest against Beijing after Chinese jets flew dangerously close and fired a volley of flares in the path of a Philippine Air Force patrol plane over a disputed shoal in the South China Sea. The Chinese Air Force jet's hostile actions against the Philippine military's North Carolina 212I light transport plane Thursday over the Scarborough Shoal was the first such aerial encounter since high seas hostilities between Beijing and Manila in the busy seaway started to flare last year. Philippine Military Chief General Romeo Bronner Jr. did not report any injuries or damage but condemned the Chinese actions, which he said could have had tragic consequences. If the flares came into contact with our aircraft, these could have been blown into the propeller or the intake or burned our plane, Bronner told reporters. It was very dangerous. Department of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Teresita Daza said without elaborating that a diplomatic protest has been transmitted to China. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said over the weekend that the actions by the Chinese Air Force jets were unjustified, illegal and reckless. We call on the government of the People's Republic of China to cease all forms of provocative and hazardous acts that could undermine the safety of Filipino military and civilian personnel in the waters or in the skies, destabilize regional peace, and erode the trust and confidence of the international community in the PRC, a Philippine government task force overseeing the South China Sea said Monday. Despite the encounter, Philippine monitoring of its airspace would be intensified, the task force said. The Southern Theater Command of the Chinese People's Liberation Army said Saturday that a Philippine Air Force aircraft illegally entered the airspace above the shoal, which China claims, disrupting its combat training activities. The command sent jets and ships to identify, track and drive away the Philippine aircraft, it added. The command warned the Philippines to stop its infringement, provocation, distortion and hyping up. The United States, Australia and Canada have reported similar actions by Chinese Air Force aircraft in the past in the South China Sea, where those nations have deployed forces to promote freedom of navigation and overflight. China has bristled at military deployments by the US and its allies in the disputed region, calling it a danger to regional security. In 2013, China announced a new air defense identification zone over the East China Sea that covers a chain of disputed islands also claimed by Japan. Beijing said then that all aircraft entering the zone must notify Chinese authorities and they would be subject to emergency military measures if they did not identify themselves or obey orders from Beijing. However, Washington and its allies said the move was invalid and refused to recognize it. Chinese officials had warned that Beijing could establish a similar air defense zone over the South China Sea if its sovereignty over the sea passage, a key global trade and security route, was threatened. J. Batongbekal, a law professor and director of the Institute for Maritime Affairs and Law of the Sea at the University of the Philippines, said the air defense zone is not an exercise of territorial rights over the area it covers. What is happening is that they are flexing their capabilities to intimidate the Philippines, to give the impression to non-Chinese audiences and countries that they have control of the air in the South China Sea, Batangbekal said. Aside from China and the Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia, Vietnam and Thailand have overlapping territorial claims in the busy sea passage, but hostilities have particularly flared between Chinese and Philippine Coast Guard and Navy forces in the Scarborough Shoal and another hotly disputed atoll, the Second Thomas Shoal, since last year. Washington has repeatedly warned that it's obligated to defend the Philippines, its oldest treaty ally in Asia, if Filipino forces, ships and aircraft come under an armed attack, including in the South China Sea. On other media, the Philippines said on Tuesday an arrangement with China to avoid confrontations during resupply missions to troops at a disputed shoal may be subject to future review, days after their latest flare-up elsewhere over the South China Sea. The two countries reached a provisional agreement in July after repeated altercations near the Second Thomas Shoal, where China has been sharply criticized by Western nations for aggression in blocking Philippine efforts to resupply troops aboard a Navy ship it intentionally grounded 25 years ago. China has repeatedly accused the Philippines of provocations and trespassing on what it calls its territory and has insisted its Coast Guard has conducted itself professionally. The Philippines completed a resupply unimpeded on July 27, with the arrangement lauded by the United States, but the release of flares on Thursday by two Chinese planes in the path of a Philippine military aircraft over the Scarborough Shoal has reignited tension amid regional concerns of an escalation. Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Ma Teresa Lazaro said the understanding with China, which applies only to the Second Thomas Shoal, did not compromise the Philippines' South China Sea position and could be re-evaluated if needed. The review will be there. When that will be is subject to further discussion, Lazaro told Reuters at the sidelines of a congressional hearing. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said in a statement on Tuesday their military took necessary measures and accused the Philippines of infringing on China's sovereignty. The two countries have agreed not to disclose what the arrangement entailed without either side's consent, the Philippine National Security Advisor said last month. It is not clear what conditions were agreed to, and both sides gave different accounts of the July 27 operation, with the Philippines accusing China of mischaracterizing it by saying it was conducted under its supervision. Philippine Foreign Minister Enrique Manalo told lawmakers his country would honor the provisional understanding and expects China to do the same.